Yeah, how does it feel? Are you ready? Listen, I need you here. I need common sense. And every session, start, oh shit, I had it mic on. I start off. Yeah. Finish off.
Testing. Hey, Nicole. Vance. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Very good. Does it have an on and off button on the mic?
You should be able to hit mute all, and that does it on the bottom left.
Left on the left bottom.
And that should kill all mics. But here, let me see it.
Yeah, I want you to. I just
Sorry, not that.
see. I just did the volume. No, good. We want. The volume
Check,
up.
check. Check, check.
It's on. It was.
Oh, that's fine.
So how do you?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
See, that's on.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good. Hey. We'll start our meeting in about 5 minutes, right at 8 o'clock.
Six, we just need 7. No.
So if y'all go ahead and take your seats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm calling the meeting to order. If y'all will take your seats, please. So I'm glad to see that everybody with DNR is happy to see us this morning. That might not be the case as we go through the session, but it's great to greet everybody and to see everybody. And we'll open this year's session with a prayer. Randy, Representative Nix.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the many blessings you give to us, and Lord, we live in a beautiful world. Lord, we pray that you would help us to respect it and to honor it and to honor you. Lord, that we would be good stewards of all that you have given to us. Bless our deliberations today and throughout the year, that we would do those things that would be pleasing to you. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Well, again, good morning, everyone. We have our first order of business today, which is to constitute our committee. That is to pass our committee rules. So you should find that in your folder. Okay, we have more folders to get out. And eventually we're going to introduce ourselves to you. But if you will look in your folder and find your rules, I think they're in there for you. While we're going through that process, the only change is on number 9. And so these rules that we've been following for years. But the way you describe electronic devices has changed through the years. That's our biggest change. So we finally just said, call all of the stuff that turns on and interrupts things electronic devices. So that was your one change in your rules. Are there any questions? Take a second and look over it. I believe it's the proper time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rules.
Is there a second? Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, committee. And again, welcome to the 8 o'clock jewel of the day meeting time. For next, we have, to those who are listening, we have two conflicting meetings this morning. One is appropriations for our supplemental budget. So we're playing with the, all right. So anyway, next week, this is the announcement that I think everybody needs to take away with them. We will be meeting at 8 o'clock in room 341 at the Capitol. It's a joint meeting between EPD and then the utility companies that are dealing with the coal residual reclamation, I guess is a good way to put it. So if you'll just make a note of that, it's a joint meeting. Last year, at the request of our committee members, we wanted to continue having a baseline information of all that's going on with this particular issue because it's of interest to everyone. So this will be an update, and that is next Thursday. I think it's the 14th. So Candy's welcome. No. Anyway, the 14th and 341. Now, one of the first things we do before we get to DNR is to give our new committee members an opportunity to introduce themselves. But although we have the same last name, there is no any kind of favoritism or anything here with our new vice chair of our committee. So we'll start with our vice chair introducing himself. Then we'll go to our secretary, and then we'll go just down the row.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Vance Smith. From Harris County. I represent Harris County, part of Harris County, part of Muskogee County, and part of Troup County. Appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board, on this committee. It's great being here. I'm a freshman.
He's a freshman with privileges, I guess. I don't know. He's a recycled legislator. So anyway, and then Representative Hogan.
I'm Don Hogan from St. Simons. And it's a pleasure to serve with our chairman again this year. And I just look forward to serving on this committee and being as helpful as I can. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll start with Chairman McCall. Your number 14. Okay.
I'm Tom McCall, representing Madison, Elbert, Lincoln, Wilkes, part of Columbia, all down the Savannah River. And I appreciate the chair lady letting me be back on her committee.
So there are two people who are like dinosaurs to the General Assembly. One of them is Representative McCall, and the other one is myself in the area of water issues. We have lived these water issues since 1997 when we first got into this, and I think we're the only two. So we are available also to help people if they have any questions about water issues. I'll refer you to Tom, and he'll refer y'all to me. So, and then Representative Corbett, what number? 17?
17.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Represent District 174, Lowndes, Eccles, Clinch, Ware, Charlton, and Camden counties. I-75 to I-95, basically across the Florida line. So this is my 4th year on the committee, and enjoy serving with the chair lady, and look forward to another good year.
Thank you. And David Hartman is our policy analyst, but please introduce yourself.
My name is David Hartman. I'm a budget and policy analyst with the House Budget and Research Office, and this will be my 3rd session working with this committee, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. And then Chairman Nix.
I'm Randy Nix, District 69, Troup, Heard, and Carroll counties, and I love to be on this committee. I'm approaching dinosaur status. I've been here 13 years, so I'm a young dinosaur. And y'all will be happy to know I've already had at least one call this morning about the Chattahoochee, so stay tuned.
The good thing about this committee is that our committee members spend as much time reviewing and looking at legislation, they also spend equal or more time studying our issues. We make an effort to do that throughout the year. So, yes, we'll be looking at all those issues. And Representative, what's your number? 25. Okay, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Angelika Kausch. I'm the new elected representative for House District 50, which is Johns Creek in North Fulton. Just Fulton and just Johns Creek. So I'm one of the lucky ones who just has to deal with one city and one county, which is unusual. And I'm looking forward to serving with you on this committee. Very excited to be here. And thank you.
Thank you. Representative Williams.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm Noah Williams, District 148, replacing Buddy Harden. Look forward to serving on this committee, and I represent Crisp, Wilcox, Pulaski, and South Houston.
Thank you. And Representative Barr.
Good morning, y'all. Timothy Barr. I get the pleasure of representing North Gwinnett and South Hall County, and I have a passion for these issues. I have 4 kiddos that I want to see enjoy the outdoors like I did growing up, and appreciate everyone here.
Thank you. Well, if you notice with our committee, there's an effort to geographically have representation from around the state. We think that's very important because in the area you live, that's your most important issue, but around the state, we have to be aware of everything for everybody. But we have with us today DNR, and they cover a plethora of different issues, and we're so glad to have all of the different division heads with us too. And we're going to turn the program over to you, Gator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. As a former member of this committee, it's really an honor to be able to come and present to you what DNR has been doing since we last met last year. I want to start by thanking you. We can't do our mission without y'all's continued support, especially the support y'all gave during special session for Southwest Georgia. That was huge and helped them and continues to help the recovery efforts down there. I also want to thank you for House Bill 208. I know some of the new members weren't here, but those of you that were here and supported that effort, which was our license increase. We did that to bring us up to the southeastern average, before we did that, we went out for a couple of years and talked to our customers, our hunters and anglers in the state, and asked them if they would allow us to do that, number one, and number two, what they wanted us to do with the money. And so you should have received a report card on your desk. We do internal audits to make sure that we're staying and doing what our customers ask us to do. So I'm asking you, if you hear that we're not living up to what I promised 2 years ago to our hunters and fishermen, to let me know, and we'll get that fixed. Also on your desk, you probably received a district-specific one-pager that talked about how many. It was with the Park Pass. I'm sorry. Yeah, we delivered them to your office. Yeah. Sorry. And it has on there how many hunters live in your district, how many anglers live in your district, how many fish we stocked, how many state parks you have, how many acres of WMA, and we think that's one of those sheets I call a refrigerator sheet. It's just a quick reference point you can keep handy, and your local contacts from our department as well. So with that, I'm going to have each of the division directors come up and tell about their divisions and what they've been doing, and for the new members, some orientation as to what we do. But we also, when in times of state disasters, hurricanes, ice storms, those such things, we play a different role to help Georgians. And so we have biologists, historic preservation people, people from all of our divisions that sort of take off their daily uniform and put on an orange shirt and a helmet and go help Georgians. I could sit here and tell you what all we do, but I think this video sort of sums it up. And so, Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd love to show this video. Every other Georgian. We're
We're watching the news.
Tracking Hurricane Irma as it moves closer to making landfall in the U.S.
They start making their predictions.
Let's get that update on Hurricane Irma.
The sheer unrelenting force of Hurricane Irma.
Life-threatening storm surge expected.
In the afternoon, everything shifting toward the northward and then gradually losing strength.
Irma had an impact statewide. The track kept changing. Part of the DNR's job is to be there before, during, and after the storm. And that's exactly what we did. The most important resource DNR offers during severe weather is our staff and our personnel. We train every day with Mother Nature and her elements, and so we're uniquely qualified to react to these storms.
What those skill sets can mean for responding to an event, whether you be with state parks, with lodging, law enforcement division, wildlife resources division, biologists, technicians in the field.
Our historic preservation division, they have to come in and assess historic assets after these issues. In an emergency, sometimes things can get chaotic, and the leader that we designated may not be there.
And one thing we kept hearing from our personnel was provide better training or more training to be able to better respond.
Critical incident management training is applying incident command system, also allowing staff to play the roles in practical exercises.
We instituted that last year, and we've had over 200 of our employees go through that.
It helps you to put tactical objectives in place so that every responder knows what your objective is for that incident.
So when we have one of these emergencies, we just all come together. So about 72 hours out, the GEMA director will call all the agency heads and we'll start communicating, and then all our people leaning forward. As DNR and the state agencies prepare for upcoming storms, Georgians are also preparing.
With regard to Georgia's preparation, mandatory evacuation will go into effect tomorrow.
Doors and windows boarded up and sandbags piled high as many are choosing to get out of Irma's path.
The word of that evacuation has spread quickly.
As they're evacuating, we try to give as much information as we can where the shelters are.
We have 60 state parks and historic sites throughout Georgia. So during Hurricane Irma, Parks Properties housed approximately 11,500 individuals. And then we had an additional 479 that were dry camping with us. So that came close to 12,000 individuals staying at our sites. As far as preparing those shelters, the park managers contacts the local emergency management agency for food items, for bottled water, for diapers, or hygiene products. Make sure that they're fully stocked, clean, functional. One provision that we have found very important is to be able to take care of their pets. All those facilities become pet friendly.
When you're dealing with these storm systems that are massive in nature and statewide in perspective, and then the day comes and the event's here. The flooding along the coast was worse than Matthew, the 1 year prior. We have maintenance facilities, shops, houses, homes, all flooded. Hurricane Irma not only reshapes a lot of your infrastructure, but it reshapes the landscape itself. Where dunes that were 20, 30 feet oceanside were now just cut and eroded away, and you have a new shoreline. So you have docks that are dangling in the air. It's the scene down there after one of these events is amazing, but Mother Nature, as always, teaches us so many different valuable lessons.
GEMA prioritized the re-entry effort, but we're the tip of the spear. We send our debris teams, they're 8-man teams. The equipment used through re-entry is a lot of the same equipment we use on a daily basis. We use use our air assets, our helicopters. Pilots get up to assess the damage from the air and direct our teams where they need to be. So we have big trucks, our law enforcement section. Every ranger has a four-wheel drive, a boat, chainsaws, ropes. So we clear from white line to white line, getting the roads passable and just cover as much ground as we can, usually working 12-hour shifts.
Your local police department, sheriff's department, are your first responders there on the scene. So if it's water or woods, our officers are always the best to respond to that.
One of the greatest things that I saw throughout any of our response effort is a teamwork.
I'm really blessed that I lead an agency that has troops that are so flexible.
Thank you for our personnel, the department as a whole. Even though we've got different divisions, collectively we come together and work seamlessly as one department.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just want to thank my staff again for the great work they do during these events. And with that, I will call up our Coastal Resources Director. You've got to actually see that building right at the very first where it said Irma at the bottom. That's our office down on the coast on Highway 17, right close to Jekyll Island. Doug is out of town, and so we have Carl, our Assistant Director, that's going to present the CRD report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to come before your committee today. As the Commissioner stated, my name is Carl Burgess. I'm the Assistant Director and pinch hitting for Doug today, who unfortunately couldn't be with us. As many of you know, coastal Georgia is a very special place. It's comprised of 11 coastal counties, approximately 500,000 acres of estuary, 300 square miles of ocean, 14 barrier islands, and it's the home of 2 deep water ports. At the CRD, it's our mission to balance the development with these amazing resources for the benefit of not just the present but future generations. The responsibilities as the stewards of the state's marshlands and the sand sharing system, administration of the coastal management program, and the management of the state's saltwater recreational and commercial fisheries are within our 2 main sections, coastal management program and the marine fisheries section. The Coastal Ocean Management Program is the non-regulatory component of the Coastal Management section. It includes such things as our Coastal Incentive Grant Program, water quality monitoring, and wetland assessments. Our compliance program within this section conducts inspections, investigates unauthorized activities, and is the point person for sunken and derelict vessels, and in addition to administering our water bottoms lease program for marinas. The Marsh and Shore Management Program is responsible for the regulatory functions associated with the issuance of federal consistency determinations, the Coastal Marshes Protection Act and Shore Protection Act, as well as our revocable license authority for state-owned tidal water bottoms. Here you can see a table. Obviously the number's a little small. I think you can see it in front of you. That shows all the different permits and authorizations that have been granted over the past 7 years. The last program within Coastal Management Program is our Shellfish program. The staff within this program are responsible for managing approximately 17 current commercial leases that comprise of approximately 29,000 acres. Currently, we have just over 100 trained pickers that work within these areas. Recently, we also established an in-house lab that has already handled over 1,000 water samples. Moving over to our marine fisheries, there are 3 main programs. The first one being our research and surveys, and this is responsible for both the ecological monitoring and the marine sports fish population health surveys, along with providing lab and analytical services. Our boating and fishing access program uses sport fish restoration funds to help provide our constituents with recreational opportunities. And our third being the Habitat Restoration Enhancement Program, which works with numerous partners to provide fish habitat enhancements and oyster reef restoration. Here are some statistical graphics showing related to our management of recreational saltwater fisheries. As for the management of our saltwater commercial fisheries, you can see that the top 3 pound per landing are hard blue crabs, shrimp, and jellyfish. Compare that to actually the per value being the hard blue crab and the shrimp. Excuse me. And in regards to funding, on the left here you can see there's a breakdown of our funding sources, and in the right graphic you can see how that is broken down the different functions within our division. Lastly, I just want to provide a resource if you'd like to know more information about what we do at Coastal Resources. Thank you.
We'll do questions later, maybe if we have time, but could you get us a copy of the slides for the committee? You got it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, Madam Chair, I'll have Dr. Dave Crass come up and give a historic preservation division.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dave Crass. I'm the Division Director of the Historic Preservation Division. Our roots go all the way back to the 1950s in the old Georgia Historical Commission, but the office as currently constituted really came about as a result of the 1966 Historic Preservation Act, which was an act of Congress. It's important to understand the purpose behind that federal act because it really does drive all of our programs. If you'll remember, in the post-war period into the 1950s and 1960s, federal agencies were going into the states and doing these big projects. Think about the interstate highway system or those awful residential towers that HUD would slap down in the middle of our historic downtowns. And the agencies were carrying out these projects with no input whatsoever from state officials or let alone local jurisdictions. And so the U.S. Conference of Mayors got together. This was truly a bottom-up piece of legislation and went to Congress in order to lobby for a seat at the table for state governments. And so that is what created our office. We function as what's called the State Historic Preservation Office under this federal act. Our mission is to promote the preservation and use of historic places for a better Georgia. I always emphasize that word use. We don't preserve historic buildings or archaeological sites or historic landscapes just because they're old. We preserve them because they have a function to fulfill in our society, be that function economic or social or educational or something else. To carry out that mission, we have 27 full-time employees. We are the tiniest division in DNR. And they are broken into two sections, our historic resources section, which you can think of as addressing historic buildings and landscapes, and our archaeology, education, and outreach section. This is our budget, $3.4 million, almost evenly divided between state and federal fund sources. And now I'll just briefly touch on our major program areas. Most of you have probably heard about the National Register of Historic Places. This is a list of the most important places, historic places that are worthy of preservation in each state. It's very difficult to get listed on the National Register. It involves a state review board, our office, and the National Park Service. But this is a keystone program of our office. Virtually everything that we do integrates with the National Register in some way. One important caveat to the National Register, there's a common misconception out there that it either provides protections for historic buildings or in some way restricts property rights. It does not. It is simply a good housekeeping stamp of approval by our office and the National Park Service saying this place is worthy of preservation. We have a very robust state tax incentive program, one of the best in the nation. The feds offer a tax incentive, an income tax credit of 20% of your rehabilitation expenses if you rehabilitate a historic building and put it back into productive use. The federal tax credit is available to income-producing properties only. So locally, think here of Ponce City Market, which is one of the projects that we coordinated through that federal process. The state also offers a state tax incentive program. That consists of an income tax credit of 25%, and then the county will freeze your property taxes at the pre-rehab rate for 9.5 years, after which it gradually comes up to whatever the going market rate is. Most developers sort of piggyback these credits. And I will note that I haven't made a study of this yet, but just looking through the Department of Economic Development's Camera Ready Community Program, virtually every community in there participates in our tax incentive program, and usually 2 or 3 of our other programs as well, for obvious reasons. I'll also note that we have a study coming out of Georgia Tech that'll be finalized next week. I wanted a very, very focused look at our state tax incentive program. I'm still a field science guy at heart, and so data are very important to me. But I think the information that comes out of that study next week will speak well of the efficiency of our state program. Section 106 review is the process by which federal agencies are mandated to consult with our office on what are called undertakings. So an undertaking for a federal agency can be everything from the licensure of a cell tower all the way up to and including the Savannah Harbor Deepening Project, which is something that I was involved with for about 17 years of my DNR career. We see between 2,500 and 3,000 of these federal projects every year, and we review each of those projects individually. It's a very, very time-intensive and skill-intensive process. So that's all the historic resources section programs. Over on the archaeology, education, and outreach side of the house, I'll just touch on a couple of the things that we do over there. We work very closely with our Wildlife Resources Division and Parks Division, supporting their activities. Over the last 20 or 30 years, consultations with the federally recognized Native American tribes has become increasingly important. Over the last year or two, due to some recent interpretations of federal law, it's become a very, very important part of our mission at HPD, and will continue, I think, to be a critical part of our operations. And then finally, we have a very robust partnership program with universities both in Georgia and outside the state. They conduct archaeology field schools on properties that we manage. The students get really good field experience. We get good data that we can use for managing those sites. Some of you may have heard of the Southern POW camp down at Magnolia Springs State Park. That was discovered several years ago as a result of this project. We have something called the Certified Local Government Program. This is a partnership. It's one of our most important and popular programs. It's a partnership between local jurisdictions, our office, and the National Park Service. In order to become a CLG, a local community has to pass a historic preservation ordinance and then impanel a commission to administer that ordinance. Doing so gives them access to some federal pass-through grants and some enhanced technical assistance from our office. But the most important benefit to the CLG program is that it gives local folks another planning tool in their toolbox so that local people are controlling the development of their downtowns. They make the decisions about what's worth preserving. I'm proud to say we have the most active CLG program in the country. We currently have 98 designated communities, and we add about 2 every year. That's more than any other state. And then we work very closely with our regional commissions on a daily basis as well. Finally, I'm proud of the fact that Georgia was the first state to have an African American Heritage Preservation Program in their SHPO. This began in 2000. This is a technical assistance program. So what we do is we have folks who will go into local communities, help them identify historic resources that they want to preserve and put back into productive use. And then we help them figure out how to fund those rehabilitations and have those buildings function again productively. Lastly, some of you may be interested in the Centennial Farms program. We started participating in this national program in 1993. The program recognizes family farms that have been in the same hands for 100 years or more. So far, we've designated more than 500 such farms. Our award ceremony this year will be on October 4th down at the fairgrounds. It's always a really great afternoon. And the Department of Agriculture, Georgia Forestry Commission, and the Farm Bureau will all be there. They're our partners in this endeavor. Commissioner Black always comes down to talk to the group, and I would invite you, if you're interested, just to flip me an email, and I'd be happy to get you the information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kress.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I know you see some new faces behind me. We had several retirements, Spud being one, and Doug took over at CRD, and also Colonel Henderson. So we have a new colonel, Colonel Thomas Bernard, and he'll give the Law Enforcement Division report.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
He's not a dinosaur. He's just early graying.
I knew that was coming, yeah. But thank you, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the committee. I appreciate this opportunity for me to share what our folks do each and every day. The Law Enforcement Division was founded in 1911, and no, I was not around in 1911, just to clarify that. But our core duties, what a game warden does around the state for your citizens in your districts. Of course, we address the traditional hunting, fishing, and boating, which a lot of folks, when they think about us, that's what they tie us to. But we also commercial-related fishing off the coast, work with our federal partners on that, our DNR controlled properties as well. And we conduct a lot of search and rescue missions around the state. We actually do 375 this past year, so that's more than one a day. Some of those will last from a day to a week. And those are folks that are missing, maybe Appalachian Trail areas in the mountains to on our waterways. So the numbers, when you look at the numbers of the people that we contact with just in our traditional duties, that's a lot of fishermen, a lot of people that hunt, and a lot of people that are on our waterways with our registered boats. And then outside of that, pretty much anybody that uses our outdoors, we come in contact with. So we also have a lot of land to cover. When you look at the number of state parks that we have 64 state parks that we patrol. You look at our WMAs, and then you look at the actual private lands that we patrol. And a lot of those patrols on private lands come from when we have a landowner that calls us, may have a trespassing issue. But when you put all that together, it's 37 million acres of ground that we cover. And we do that with 226 game wardens statewide. So a lot of walking to do there. Our waterways, and a lot of folks that are on our waterways see us. We got 16,000 miles of rivers that we patrol across the state. The impounded waters, that's like your Lake Lanier or your Lake Altoona. 100 linear miles of shoreline on the coast, and we go out 200 miles offshore with our federal partners on some joint enforcement patrols out there as well. So with the water comes our underwater technology. We are the primary agency for all boating accident investigations and, of course, drowning recovery. Last year, we recovered 55 drowning victims, and we do that also on private property, on farm ponds, and that sort of stuff, but, of course, on our state waterways. So when you look up there, the bottom right picture, that's called a side scan sonar. So when we have a big search area, we deploy that behind the boat. And then once we define the area, we deploy what's called a sector scan, and that's in the top of the picture there. Kind of looks like a Doppler radar, and we can actually see down in the sediment with that piece of equipment. And then the bottom left is called an ROV, and you got to have a, looks like a game control. I'm not very good with it, I can tell you that, but our 23 and 24-year-old wardens know how to drive that thing as soon as they look at it. And so we use the ROV to go down and look at the victim, and sometimes it's a piece of evidence that we support our sheriff's departments with if somebody has thrown some evidence in a private pond. So teamwork, we're by law commanded to assist the State Patrol and the GBI, and just like this past week we were at Super Bowl, I had 30 officers assigned to that, and then we also assisted Stone Mountain State Park with their closure of the park last Saturday as well. So we get into a lot of other things other than our core duties, but like the body recovery team, our Governor's Drug Task Force, those are things that we come together and form those with our state partners. Public education, I can't say enough about this. I drive home the fact of community involvement because, you know, that's where we've got to get out, talk to our folks. We do over 2,000 programs every year with our 226 folks. And it's so important because the good citizens of the state, they're our eyes and ears when there's only 226 of us out there. And we want to make sure that we're teaching our next generation what we do and what we're about and how important our resources are. Again, I said 226 post-certified. The map's broken down per region. There's a captain that's over each region, and they have lieutenants and sergeants. It's paramilitary in design in our rank structure. Our training academy is 23 weeks. It's located there at the training center. And once they come out of the training academy, we have a 6-month probationary field training period where they're with a field training officer. And every day they're graded on what they're doing before we actually turn them loose. So it's about a year from the time we put them through the academy and we turn them loose on the road. We want to make sure we've got someone that, you know, they're doing what we want, the way we want it done, and to make sure we don't have any issues. So When you look at hiring someone and putting them through the academy, it's $152,000. So our recruitment program is extremely important because that's a huge investment. If we have someone that washes out of the academy, then it's another year that we have to wait until we can do another rehire. So it's a big investment there. So before House Bill 208, if you look at the map, that's what we looked like across the state. Those red counties were, we had 43 counties without a resident game warden in those counties. And so you had officers that were covering 2 and 3 counties in some places, especially in South Georgia. And this is where we are today. So a huge thank you for your support in House Bill 208. That makes a huge difference. The workload obviously is lifted for a lot of our folks, and I know our citizens, that was one of their top 3 when they were polled on the 208 funds. It was more game wardens in their area, and I appreciate your support on that. So funding, I'm not sure why that didn't populate, but in the green there, those are state allocated dollars along with license revenue. So we get $16 million roughly on state allocated funds, and then 12 through license revenue. In the yellow, that's our federal funding, and that's the boating recreational monies we get from Coast Guard for patrolling our state waterways. And then the other is a breakdown of grants and a few of restitution fees as well. So what motivates us, probably what motivates all of us at the end of the day, and that's our next generation. That's why we do what we do, to make sure that we're putting things in place for them when they get to the point where they're out and, you know, our age and doing the things that we do. We want to make sure we lay out a good platform for them. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation.
And Madam Chair, our next presenter is no stranger to this committee, but just in a new role. He finally saw the bright side and came over to the
Or he got repurposed or
parks, that's right.
retreaded or, you know,
Mr.
however.
Mr. Jeff Cowan, Jeff Cowan, our new State Parks Director.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am so happy today to be here to talk to you all about state parks and historic sites in Georgia.
To those who don't know this conversation, he was with EPD for several years, which is regulatory.
2 or 3,
and
yeah.
how many?
28.
28 years. So welcome.
Thank you. First off, here's our mission and vision statement. I'm not going to read it because I think they're going to give you all the PowerPoint here, but basically our division's here to protect the state's natural beauty and protect historic integrity in Georgia while allowing everybody the opportunity to recreate in these facilities. To sort of go down what we have in our system, we have 48 state parks, 14 state historic sites, 5 lodge parks with conference centers that contain 8 golf courses, over 400 cabins that you could, or cottages. I have trouble cabins, cottages. I like cabins, my folks like cottages. 39 yurts if you want to have a tent already set up for you on a deck. 55 group shelters, 41 campgrounds, 14 group camps with lodges, and 550 miles of hiking, biking, nature, canoeing, kayaking, and equestrian trails on over 84,000 acres in Georgia. Our parks are thriving and are good for Georgia. We had over 9 million visitors last year that created an economic impact of over $911 million and almost 8,700 local jobs. First off, to talk about our historic sites. We have 14 historic sites all out throughout the state, the mountains, the middle of the state, and a lot along the coast. These are very valuable, and at the top there you see Fort King, or Fort Morris. I have the things here, I'm not even using them. Fort King George, top left, Fort Morris, top right, Reynolds Mansion on Sapelo Island, bottom left, and FDR's Willie's Car in the Little White House Museum, bottom right. We have a lot of things going on. We do a lot of interpretive programs like you see at Fort Morris there. Our folks work really well with these things to try to provide opportunities to look back into history. I think Dr. Krass talked about Fort Lawton at Magnolia Springs, which is a very neat place to go visit. I visited it a couple weeks ago. We also have 16 museums, one on each of our historic sites and a couple of the state parks like Magnolia Springs. And we have we're running a special the second year to doing it. We're sort of playing off a Super Bowl Sunday. We're going to have Super Museum Sunday coming up this Sunday, February 10th. And so I invite you out to look at one of our museums, and it's free admission on Sunday to everybody. Find your perfect spot. You know, we've got campgrounds at all our facilities. We have 2,400 camping sites. We went to site-specific camping. We started in 2017, the fall of 2017, and will be complete by this summer, where you can pick what sites you want up to 13 months advance at our state parks. Some folks were working through this system. Some folks had historically, you know, would run out on Wednesday and put their camper and come back, and they're not as happy. But a lot of people are happy though, because they can sit on their computer at home and pick which one they want to go, and it's ready. Our park managers have it ready for them when they get there. Also, we added a new campground to our system in the fall of 2018, thanks to Georgia Power for letting us operate this campground for them. It had been closed for a couple of years. It's Dames Ferry on Lake Juliet down in Forsyth. This is a very popular campground with fishermen on that lake. The first Sunday we reopened it, Saturday we reopened it, we had over 150 boats put in at the boat ramp. So we're very excited, and we're actually having a reopening ribbon cutting this tomorrow at Dames Ferry. Cabin yurts, camper cabins. We have 463 of these throughout the state, almost 400 cabins at 30 sites, 28 camper cabins, and 39 yurts. So you can go from luxurious like this one on the left at Fort McAllister, or you can have a very historic cabin like in the middle, which is a CCC cabin, or a yurt. Like I said, it's a tent already put up for you on the deck, ready for you to come visit. There's always something new to try. We have archery, biking, boating, disc golf, fishing, golfing, hiking, swimming, foot golf, which I've seen a little bit of. It's new to me. We have several clubs that you can join to see the state parks. Tails on Trails, the dog walking club, canyon climbers if you like to climb, muddy spokes if you like to run, and sometimes like it's been raining back in January, you could get muddy, or park paddlers to kayak or canoe at our parks. Always have adventure. You can do tree climbing at Panola Mountain State Park. You can do cave tours, Cloudland. We have zip lining at Amicalola and Unicoi, so there's a lot of things you can try. We're on social media. It's a big part of our marketing and letting folks know what's going on. Almost 300 Facebook followers, 48,000 Instagram, and 11,600 Twitter. Also on Facebook and these other social media, we have some cabins or cottages that have not been rented. A lot of times you can get specials on Wednesday afternoon, and if you want to run, say, Magnolia Springs at a late thing, to stay at a cottage and look at the museum. And questions whenever y'all get ready. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your new role. I have to ask, foot golf?
Did you say spud?
Foot, what kind of golf?
Foot golf.
Foot,
golf.
F.
Yes. Where they kick a soccer ball in a bigger thing, I believe.
I just thought you were legitimizing gimmies or whatever.
That's a good one. Next, we'll have Director Garrison, Rusty Garrison from Wildlife Resources Division.
Thank you, Commissioner and Madam Chair. It's great to be here. Our mission in Wildlife Resources is a little bit different from parks. We conserve, promote fishing, hunting, and wildlife resources in the state, and we have numerous people coming to our WMAs. Our most visited WMA is probably Crockford Pigeon Mountain. We have about 200,000 people a year come there due to the outdoor recreation opportunities that are there. You've got a copy of our mission statement and this little business card. I give the business card to all of our staff. We have 350 staff, permanent staff, and another about 150 temporary staff. Everybody's got one of these so that they know where they fit in our mission. I want them to have that. I want them to be able to look at it and say, hey, this is where we are. It also has our vision and our motto and our values in there. And I gave you a copy of that as well. We're broken up into the director's office where we have public affairs, and public affairs also includes our marketing and our volunteers and our training program. And we have a brand new public affairs person, Lacey Creech. She's 5 days on the job, and I would introduce her right here. So she is coming and trying to learn all about the process here. We also have game management and fisheries management. And then new to you, it was the non-game conservation section. We changed that name in July to better reflect what they do instead of what they don't do. And so they're now called the Wildlife Conservation Section. That's the section most of you would deal with on this committee. And again, we've just changed it over from non-game to wildlife conservation. Our funding for wildlife resources, federal funds, 41% of our funding comes from federal funds. Then our license revenue, 18% comes from license revenue. And again, House Bill 208 helped us tremendously. We increased our fishing and hunting licenses from $9 to $15. That doesn't sound like a lot. We were at the bottom in the country on our license pricing. We are even below Mississippi. And so that was one of our selling points. We got to get above Mississippi. And so we increased that fee. And it's now at the southeastern average, as the commissioner already mentioned. We also, if you look at it, $65 for a sportsman's license, that covers everything. That gets you access for the price of 2 movie tickets and a dinner out with your spouse. That gets you access to 1 million acres of land throughout the state for outdoor recreation. It's an amazing price structure there. And then you see there's other funds that we have, 37%, and then other state funds, 4%. So with that, we manage 500,000 acres of public waters. You've heard these figures already from the colonel. They're patrolling them, we're managing them. And so we've got 500,000 acres of public water, 16,000 miles of streams and rivers, and then I already mentioned 1 million acres of land that we manage. That comprises 105 management areas that we own, and then we have some that are temporary leased that gets your numbers up a little bit more. 11 public fishing areas. We just added a new one, Silver Lake, this year because of House Bill 208. And then we have 10 fish hatcheries and 152 boat ramps, all for access. House Bill 208 was really centered around, as has already been said, more game wardens, but also access and habitat management, and that's really where we're focusing. We have 7 regional education centers, and then we've got shooting ranges. One of our shooting ranges out at Clybell, Charlie Elliott Wildlife Center, we have 2,500 people a month come to that shooting range. It is amazing how many people are coming to the shooting ranges now. And so we're building and constructing more of those throughout the state. Then also the state's threatened and endangered species. And I do want to mention we've purchased land, and a lot of that land that we've purchased is for gopher tortoise restoration and red cockaded woodpecker restoration. We lost 131 red cockaded woodpecker cavity trees during the last hurricane. And so we immediately went in and started trying to figure out how to replace those. We got a $96,000 grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to help us put in inserts for the replacement of those 131 red cockaded woodpecker cavity trees. Our funding comes from grants, but for hunting and fishing, it comes from license revenue and from sport fish and wildlife restoration funds. And that's based on a complicated formula that's here. You've got a packet that shows this. That formula is based on the land mass, the land size for the state, and then also the number of license holders in the state. So we promote, for every license holder, we get about $46 in these federal funds. They have to be used for conservation. They can't go for wildlife conservation. They can't go for anything else. And if we don't get them, another state does. So we really push for people to buy licenses. If they're going to be out there enjoying our natural resources, buy a license. Just buy a $15 fishing license. That will do it for us. And so that gets us that $46 in federal funds. I just want to point out the last bullet point here. The hunters account for $977 million in retail sales for the state of Georgia per year, and anglers $1.3 billion in retail sales per year. Wildlife conservation is funded a little differently. We get $900,000 in state funds, and then we have Weekend for Wildlife. We have our license plate. We've got the wildlife tax checkoff. All of that adds up to about $20 million a year. And so for the $900,000 in state investment, we get $20 million in other funding. And you've got an annual report in front of you for our wildlife conservation program. be sure to look through that, or you can go online and look at it. They just got that posted yesterday online as well. Finally, I just want to wrap up with House Bill 208. If you hadn't figured it out, we're excited about it. Everybody's mentioned it. And we really are focused on access. That's what the hunters and the anglers asked us about and wanted us and Wildlife Resources to do, and habitat management. And so that's reflected here. We've built piers, we've built restrooms, we've paved parking lots, all to increase access. We've added lights to a lot of our facilities so that now we open up it for night fishing, which has been a request for years, and so we're now providing that. We've added Silver Lake as a public fishing area, so we have more areas to fish, and then we opened up Dawson Fish Hatchery from a 6-month program to a 12-month program. On the game management side, we have constructed 195 miles of new roads since the time we got House Bill 208. We are also renovated over 400 miles of existing roads. And then we've added or improved, as you see these numbers, 223 acres of waterfowl habitat at 951 acres of mourning dove habitat. So we're trying to provide more opportunity, more access as much as we can. That's where we are. And then we've added some biologists to help with private lands. As I said, we've got 1 million acres on our WMAs, but the state of Georgia is way bigger than that. Most of it's in private lands, and so we're wanting to really assist those private landowners. So we're providing help to them through these biologists for technical assistance. And then we've enhanced our shooting ranges. As I've already mentioned, we've needed that. We're trying to build a shooting range within an hour's drive of every citizen of Georgia. That's our goal, and we're almost there. We have one more place to go, and I think we've got that one worked out as well. So with that, I'm through. Questions?
Thank you very much. We don't have time for questions now, so we'll.
Okay. Madam Chair,
we're bumping up against rules next. Yes.
Could I introduce Wes real quick?
Maybe no.
Especially for the new members. If
I
you
see
have
no
some
questions from our committees, but for later,
Okay.
yes, we want to meet everybody.
Wes, if you would stand up, if you have questions, he helps us with legislation from the department. For you new members, Wes Robinson. Also have with me Terry West, who's Deputy Commissioner. Terry, if you'll stand up. So if you can't find me, one of these folks will be sure to help you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I didn't want to cut you short. Our committee just can reach y'all later for questions, but do you have anything else to add with your presentation? Today is the day that got loaded up with committee meetings back to back to back, so we're kind of running from one place to another. I think I speak for our whole committee to say we know we have a wonderful state, and y'all keep it that way for us, and we really do appreciate that. And at some point, tourism and the competitiveness that I think we now are establishing for ourselves, it'd be great to find out how we compare with our neighboring states now with the new amenities that we're able to offer. But you've chaired this agency now for 8
Yes, ma'am.
8 years. Done a wonderful job, and
Thank
we
you.
really do appreciate it. Now, I'm remiss if I don't recognize, I think we've had a couple of our legislators show up. We had Representative Mary Frances Williams, and we also had Representative Deborah Bazemore and Representative Carla Drenner who came in. But more than anything, the people who run and operate this committee, I need to recognize. I wanted to do it at the end. So Rachel is the young lady, if she will stand, or did she already leave? Right there. Okay. She's been handing out all of our programs and everything. So she is our intern with our committee this year. Nicole Chappelle, you know, from years past. And then our lead counsel is Lori Brill. And let's see, I think we've talked to David Hartman. And these people, if you can't get me, you want to find Nicole or David. So, but everyone helps make this a great committee. And to my committee members, we wouldn't function like we do if y'all didn't come. So thank you for your participation. And we will meet everyone next week in room 341 at the Capitol at 8 o'clock. And it's a presentation by EPD and all of the utility companies involved with coal remediation. So thank you. We stand adjourned.